Welcome everyone to another edition of the Comic Review. My name is Eric. Today I'm going a little bit retro. I'm doing a little bit of experimenting with the channel. We haven't posted anything in quite a while, despite the fact that I've recorded quite a few unboxing videos from different pop stuff that came in and whatnot, although I haven't put them out just because of time, I guess. But today I'd like to bring back regular posting on the channel in the form of some retro stuff. The more and more I kind of look at what's going on in today's comics, the more and more it makes me feel like going back and taking a look at some older stuff. And through the modern technology and subscription services and everything, we can actually go back pretty easily and take a look at the comics of yesteryear. So today is going to be the first video when what I'm possibly going to do is a series of videos just looking back at like some of the history, starting with Marvel Comics more so. And today we're going to take a look at the wacky adventures of that fearsome foursome. That's right, today we're going to take a look at Fantastic Four Volume 1, Number 1. That's right, this is the original Fantastic Four Number 1. We've had quite a few relaunches of the series, starting in the 90s with the Heroes Reborn event that happened after the Onslaught storyline. And then, Marvel at this point, every year we have to reset the numbering on all our books. Why, we don't know. There's not even a Fantastic Four series out right now. However, going back and looking at the history or timeline of the Marvel Universe, as you will, it's very important to go with Fantastic Four, seeing as how they are the first main superheroes of the Silver Age. Now, a little side note, since we were talking about timeline, I do understand that there was Captain America and Namor the Submariner and the original Human Torch and those kind of characters, but for the purposes of this review series and just wanting to make sure it doesn't take us years to get into the 60s, I decided to start with Fantastic Four Number 1. If I need to go back during this whole thing and do like a couple of videos or anything like that on earlier wartime issues of these characters, I will, but for right now we're going to be starting this whole series with Silver Age Fantastic Four Number 1. So let's go ahead and dive into this issue. This issue was written and drawn by immortal legends of the comic book world, Stan Lee as the writer, Jack Kirby as the artist. Theories and whatnot aside as to who did what on the books, you cannot argue with the fact that both men contributed greatly to the early success of the Fantastic Four and Silver Age Marvel in general. This issue has quite a few firsts. It is the first appearance of Mr. Fantastic, Invisible Woman, The Thing, and the Johnny Storm version of the Human Torch. And as far as villains go, this is the first appearance of the Mole Man. So let's go ahead and take a look at some things I thought were very interesting about this book, going back and reading it after, more sticking with modern books for the last few years. First thing I want to take a look at is what I'm calling the destructive summons. This book kind of does events out of order. It starts off with showing you and showcasing the Fantastic Four in their superpowered modes in a way. The origin comes later in the book, but we see a little tasting of the Fantastic Four's powers in these first few pages. The mysterious figure in some apartment somewhere in Central City, not New York, Central City, and no, this does not guest star the Flash. The mysterious figure fires a flare into the sky that creates a cloud with letters in it that say the Fantastic Four. Everyone in the town is bewildered, befuddled as to what this ominous warning means, or this note in the sky means. And then we get introduced slowly to all the characters that are going to make up the Fantastic Four. First we see Sue, and the reason I call this destructive summons is because when the four get called by Mr. Fantastic, spoilers, it's just a cluster. Like, just so many bad things happen just to get to their headquarters. First of all, Sue is in a society event with some friends of hers. She sees the signal in the sky and decides, oh, I have to do my civic duty or whatever, and the time has finally come and whatever. She goes invisible, and instead of like making her way to wherever it is she's going undetected, she bumps into every single thing in person she can find on the way, knocking everybody over. Everyone's like, oh my gosh, what's going on? We then get over to Ben Grimm thing, and he's in a trench coat, glasses, and everything. But he sees the signal. He gets that sense of duty and whatever to go out and respond to the summons. And he just starts, he rips off his trench coat and everything, reveals the monster underneath. Everyone's freaking out. He's banging through doors, banging through walls. At one point, he like pounds through the street, goes into the sewers, and then comes out, you know, at another street, you know, somewhere near the apartment, just causing mass destruction. Then we get over to Johnny Storm, and he sees the flare. He's working with a friend of his or in a garage or something, working on a car, and he sees the four in the sky and everything, and he just decides to flame on, and we didn't call it that in this issue. I don't think that gets mentioned until issue 4, but he flames on inside this car and just melts it down. Like, dude, just step 2 feet to the right, get out of the car, then flame on. Show everybody your powers, whatever. Just don't do it inside the car. You're gonna melt it, which you did. It's just a pile of whatever. Which then brings me into my next point that I'm calling hated and feared. I know this is taking the mantra or whatever of the X-Men, but it kind of goes with this issue to the Fantastic Four more, because they're genuinely showing people in this very first issue that they are a menace. I mean, if J. Jonah Jameson was created at this point, he'd be writing newspaper articles and editorials and everything about the Fantastic Four instead of Spider-Man. So upon seeing like the Human Torch flying through the sky and everything, somehow someone contacts the National Guard, the military, what have you, and starts sending fighter jets after Johnny Storm, and he accidentally melts them down in the sky because apparently that heat is too hot. And then out of nowhere, this missile is heading for Johnny, and we come to find out this missile has a nuclear warhead on it. Mind you, from the artwork in all these in these pages, these 2 pages, because again, we're back to with these reviews, we're back to compressed storytelling. So something that would take normally 3 to 4 issues now would take only 1 issue back in the day. Regardless, the artwork in this issue shows that this nuclear warhead was launched and is over Central City, or what we'll probably retcon in New York, but regardless, calling it Central City because we're looking at this on its own. And it just baffles me, the fact that the military would go ahead just because this flying fireball guy is flying through the air, that the US government would launch a nuclear missile at it over a civilian population. So everyone just loses their ever-loving mind in this issue. The Fantastic Four are blowing stuff up, and the government's just, you know, taking the wrong approach to stopping this menace. So anyway, so then we have Mr. Fantastic now showing off his powers. He reaches up into the sky, grabs, with his elastic powers, grabs the missile, throws it into the ocean. It goes off safely in the water. God knows how far away it was from the city itself. But I mean, this was just a highly destructive, just crazy issue, and we're only on page 8. That's it. So at this point in the story now, the four have gathered, talk about the mission, and then the story kind of shifts over to the origin story of the book, of the Fantastic Four itself. And forget what you know from the first 2 Fantastic Four movies and whatever that was in 2015 that came out. This is where we're going to go back to the original origin for the Fantastic Four, or as I like to title it, Reed Richards' Rocket Thief. So yes, Reed Richards, as everyone knows from comics and everything, creates a rocket ship to go into space. In this issue, it's just that it's going out into the far reaches of space. I think it's a retcon in the next issue to say that the team was going to Mars, but just they were trying to get into space or out into the farther reaches of space because they wanted to beat the commies there. In these early issues, and if we get into more of these old issues on the channel, you're going to see a lot of mentions of communism and whatnot, because that was one of the nation's biggest fears. We were in the middle of the Cold War and everything at that point, so you're going to see a lot of seemingly patriotic, anti-communist stuff going on in these issues. But you have to remember it was the time that the issues were written in. So just remember that if you're yourself are going through Marvel Unlimited, or you have the trades or anything like that, there's going to be a lot of that stuff in these books sprinkled throughout. So the Fantastic Four decide that they're not even the Fantastic Four yet, but they decide that they need to get into space before the Russians, before the communists too. So they decide to go ahead and do their rocket launch anyway. It's not really fully explained in here, because if they did mention the cosmic rays as a deterrent for going up, they don't really explain that I saw in the book whether or not they were originally waiting to launch because the cosmic rays in the area and they wanted to wait until they left the area, or if they were going to study the cosmic rays. They really don't even talk about it at all. In the movies, they kind of, in the original Fantastic Four movie in the 2000s and whatnot, they do talk about going up and studying the cosmic rays. I don't think that was necessarily the point here. Again, they were just going into space or trying to leave our solar system. Or Mars, if you have already read ahead in issue 2. Ben is against it. He doesn't want to go. Reed and whoever call him a coward, and which riles him up, kind of like Marty McFly being called chicken. They go into they get in the rocket, but they sneak on to the military base where the rocket is being kept, basically steal the rocket and fly off. So it's just crazy when you look at these old issues and think of all the crimes and everything committed by the heroes, we're not even anywhere near the villain yet. So anyway, so I'm not going to get any more really into the origin story. You all know it. They get hit by the cosmic rays while they're on the spaceship. The ship pilots itself, I believe, automatic pilot, back to Earth, where they discover that they have their powers. One of the things also in this, when talking about especially the Thing with getting their powers, when he does become the rock monster, essentially, is that it's not explicitly stated throughout the issues, but he does more and more lose his temper throughout the Thing. I can't say they don't mention it, because the characters do notice that he is getting more and more aggressive throughout the series. Again, for the purposes of these reviews, I am reading ahead just to make sure I'm getting all the proper facts and everything. But that is going to be a theme going through, is Ben's anger and everything, especially toward Reed, throughout the books. So at this point, you know, even though yes, they're a team, they're not that much of a team. We don't have that loving family aspect that we get in more modern tellings of the Fantastic Four. Though they are the first family, they're really not acting that much like a family at this point. Also, another thing you won't notice in this entire issue, going back and looking at it now, no costumes. Fantastic Four do not have a costume in this book, and just to jump ahead a little bit here, they don't have it in the second issue either. For whatever reason, they don't get costumes. They don't finally get their costumes until the third issue of the series, when they fight the Miracle Man. I don't know if Stan and Jack were trying to do something a little bit different than DC was doing at the time, but 2 issues later they did relent and give them costumes, though you don't see them in this issue. So find that a little weird. That's the reason why. With that, we're actually going to go into our kind of a villain spotlight in this issue and talk a little bit about the Mole Man. He is the main villain of this issue, and his plan is diabolical. Reed summons the Fantastic Four because of the fact that atomic power plants have been disappearing across the globe. As they're talking about it, a monster from Strange Tales, or Tales to Astonish, or Tales of Suspense, one of those books, erupts from the ground and takes out a power station, I believe in France. Fantastic Four somehow realize that the origin for all this is on a place called Monster Island, which also makes its first appearance in this issue. The four get on a plane and go to the island. When they get to Monster Island, they encounter the Mole Man, alias Herbert Rupert Elder. This is the first appearance of the Mole Man, as well as the first official villain of the Fantastic Four. When the Fantastic Four get to the island, they encounter various monsters because it's Monster Island. Johnny and Reed get separated from the group, and like any good 60s villain, the Mole Man puts them into shiny suits of some sort for reasons that are unknown to any of us, as he goes about his master plan, which I guess should feel common to any person now. Basically, due to the fact that he was scorned and ridiculed by those around him, unlucky in love, unlucky in business and whatnot. In the modern world, he decides to leave society. While searching for a lost civilization at the center of the earth, he apparently had a cave-in. He fell, lost most of his sight, but then became the master of all the creatures on Monster Island somehow, and decided to be evil. He reveals that his evil plan was to strip the world of its power, take down all the various power plants and whatnot, and then use the natural caverns and whatnot throughout the earth to take over the world, conquer the world, what have you. Thing and Sue finally show up, save Reed somehow from nowhere, fight off some of the various monsters. They attempt to escape, but Mole Man tries to stop them, calls forth all his monsters that are now chasing after them. Mole Man gets away from them. Johnny uses his flame powers to cave in the cavern, and that's pretty much it for the Mole Man at that point. The Fantastic Four get on their jet, fly away, and then they look behind them and the island blows up somehow. It's never really, in this issue, looking at, it's never explained how the island blows up, because I mean, it's not like he had all the atomic power plants underneath the building, but somehow island explodes. Mushroom cloud, everything, and the Fantastic Four just talk about the fact that he sealed himself in the island, though with that big of explosion, it looks like he's dead. But then Reed says he would never have had any place in our world, which is a little harsh. I'm pretty sure a lot of people these days feel the same way the Mole Man does in this issue, and they're not going around conquering monster islands or anything like that. But to each his own, and that's where the story ends. That is the first adventure of the Fantastic Four. So much want and destruction, and keep note in this that, and I'm going to bring this up in the next video most likely, but keep note as to what the public saw in this issue as opposed to what we saw. The public in the story itself, the Marvel Universe at this point. Keep note of that when we get into the next issue. It's going to be an important thing. With that said, tell me what you guys think of this issue. I know I kind of went quickly through it. There's a lot of stuff in these old issues because they try to cram so much story into these books, because they want to make sure that it's worth your 10 cents or 12 cents. But let me know what you guys thought about this issue. Let me know if you go back and read it through Marvel Unlimited, or if you read it through trade, or if you have any of the Masterworks books or anything like that, or if you just happen to be one of those lucky sons of guns who has this issue somewhere that you got from your grandfather or something like that. But yeah, let me know what you guys thought of this issue. Any little weird factoids or anything that you found interesting in the book, let me know below in the comments. And I'd just like to thank you guys for tuning into this retro review on the Comic Review. If you enjoyed this video, please let me know. Also, give this video a like and subscribe to the channel. We're going to be trying to come out with some more various retro reviews in the future, so stay tuned for that, and I will see you guys in the next review. Later.